I am recording.
Thank you. First order of business, I'll call this meeting to order. The Library Planning Committee, Tuesday, October 17th, 2023, 10 a.m. in room 54 of the Dunn County Government Center. The next order of business is call of the roll. Andrew, you want to take care of that for us?
Supervisor Headland. Missing. Supervisor Zons. Supervisor Johnson. Pat Eggert.
Here.
Jim Tripp.
Here.
And Chair Steen.
Here.
Perfect. And then we also have the two of the library directors. Thank you for joining us, Shelley and Jolene.
Was there any public comment that you had, Krista?
No, I did not receive any.
Thank you very much. I have none either. The next order of business is to getting to our business today. Items to be placed at the request of the chair for discussion. A presentation on library funding by John Thompson, the director of the IFLS. The reason that this came about is we had our last library meeting and a question was raised about funding, and our information was somewhat hazy. And I thought this is an effort to educate our new librarians, our new board members, and the county board members, and anybody that would want to participate in this meeting. So I welcome everybody that's here. You all can move up if you want, or if you're okay where you're at. So, okay, having said that, I'll introduce John Thompson.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's really going to be an informal presentation on library funding. I'm going to, spend at least an hour and a half talking about it. Just kidding. It is a complicated situation, but libraries are, for a little background, a creature of their municipality. So they are organized by a city, a village, a town, and in some cases, there are some consolidated counties libraries within Wisconsin. So from a funding perspective, their primary funding source is their local municipality. That is typically where they receive the bulk of their funding from. And then the secondary source of funding is their home county. So in this case, it would be Dunn County. And then they would also receive funding from the adjacent counties for serving individuals that live in areas that don't have a public library. So in Dunn County, there are 4 public libraries. There's one in the town of Sand Creek, city of Menominee, village of Colfax, and the village of Boyceville. Those all have independent public libraries. Menominee has a branch in Elk Mound, but it's not an organized public library in the sense that they manage and run it themselves. It's an outlet for Menominee. The residents, when we look at county funding, the ones that are considered library folks are the ones that live in the city of Menominee, the villages of Boyceville and Colfax, and the town of Sand Creek. All the rest of the residents within the county are eligible for funding to be paid to libraries for their use. In some cases, you may be paying libraries in St. Croix County, Pepin County, or other counties because they're part of the adjacencies that are serving your residents. So county library funding is based on where your residents of the county go to use library services. So it's something that was written in the statute late 1998, 2000 time period. So it's a relatively new function. And statute requires a minimum of 70%. Dunn County has moved through the county library planning process and has upped that to 100%. That some of your neighbors are at 100% as well. So Eau Claire County is, as well as St. Croix County. The last couple of years, in fact, St. Croix County has been paying everyone at 100%. So even the adjacent libraries and outside counties are receiving 100% from St. Croix County. Those funds are then, appropriated to the library board. The library board has exclusive control over how those funds are spent. One of the options that the 4 municipalities have is the ability to exempt from the county library tax. In essence, what that is saying is that those residents are not taxed twice for library service. So really, the county property taxpayers are paying for those rural residents that are using library services. So that's why the exemption is there. The minimum to exempt from the county library tax is not considered what the minimum should be for funding a public library in Wisconsin. That is just the municipality's ability to not pay that tax twice. And so that resolution has to come before each municipality every year and given to the county. And there isn't really a set time frame for that exemption, but obviously in order for the county to put their tax levy together, they have to do it prior to that levy being fixed and sent out in property tax bills. That number changes every year. Part of that is based on the equalized assessed value each municipality has in relationship to the rest of the county. So, you know, a municipality may do a reassessment, property values may just skyrocket. So that number fluctuates. There is that component. The other piece of county funding is that it is outside of the levy limit because it does vary every year. So it's similar to bridge aids. You don't, as a county board, typically have any control over what those dollars are because it's a formula based for library funding. So you have the ability to pay at whatever level you wish to fund libraries at without impacting other county services. Obviously, it does impact property tax bills, but it's something that you as a county board have chosen over the last decade or so to fund at 100%. And, you know, typically what a library budget looks like in terms of funding, they know their revenue sources from the counties because they submit those requests by July 1. So they'll have a good sense of what that is going into their budget process. So then the remainder of the revenue that they're looking at for operating the library would come from their home municipality. So whether it's a village, city, or town. Those entities are facing levy limits. So they have to balance all of library funding in with all the other expenses. And depending on how shared revenue plays out for each individual municipality, it gives them some flexibility without necessarily having to make drastic cuts in services. But, you know, that is always something that they're facing because of the levy limits. And that's, you know, a driving factor in a lot of municipal services right now, whether it's libraries, police, fire.
I guess I have a question if I could, John. If a municipality would not fill out this resolution, what would the effect actually be to the municipality?
So the municipality wouldn't have an impact. It would be the taxpayers within that municipality. So in essence, they would be paying for their own library tax on their property bill. And then they would also be assessed the share of the county library tax onto their property tax bill. So in essence, they're paying for library service twice. So they're paying a share of what county non-resident library use would be.
So practically speaking, if they didn't opt out with that resolution, they'd be paying more. Would that be correct?
Yes, they would be,
Okay.
the property payers would be paying more.
I just wanted to get that straight in my mind here. Does anybody have any questions for John? Please feel free. This is a pretty relaxed meeting. Yeah, Mike.
John, I think I understand, but so the city of Menominee, for example, the library funding is under the levy limit. But for the county, we're not.
Correct.
Yeah, sorry, just for Ann at home, Supervisor Kinnear asked if the city of Menominee was under the levy limit based on library funding. But in the county, it's not. Is that your question? Yeah. Sorry.
Any other questions? Please feel free. The whole idea of this meeting today was to educate me and to educate the other members of the committee and anybody that would have an interest. And we invited the county board members to come if they wanted to. Some of them might be combining or whatever, but the object in my mind is just a better understanding of how libraries are funded, what it means locally to your municipality if you do not opt out, or, I think it's important that everybody understands the process. And that's the driving force behind our get together today. So Pat Eggert, go ahead.
I know we have people here from Boyceville and from Colfax, and I'm not sure if both of those municipalities have opted out of the county library tax or not. Do you folks know? You have? You have to. Okay.
So procedurally, when a municipality chooses to opt out, they notify the county clerk's office, and we make sure that we put that into the tax calculation. Just for a little bit of background, for 2024, we received funding requests from 42 libraries throughout the state of Wisconsin. Most of them are regional to Western Wisconsin because that's where our residents might be using them. But we received 42 different library requests. So the county clerk's office handles the processing of all of that information when it develops the budget to go to, at Dunn County, the Community Resources and Tourism Committee. That committee is the one that kind of oversees the library funding and determines, and historically has said, we will give 100% of funding requests to all in-county libraries and 70% of funding requests, which is dictated by statutes, to all the exterior or external county libraries. So that's kind of the process of how it works here. If that makes sense.
Mr. Tripp.
Thank you. John, maybe you could speak a little bit to, we've talked about library funding requests. What are those requests based on? And what I'm getting at is obviously this is the actual cost circulation from the previous year, but maybe if you can run through that, that'll clarify as well.
Okay, yeah, so the county funding is based on usage by the non-residents within the county, and there's a formula for that in statute. It's taking the total operational expenditures of the library and dividing it by the total circulation, and you get a cost per circulation. That number is then multiplied by the number of items checked out by individuals in Dunn County that don't live in one of those 4 municipalities with a library. So that gives you that county funding level. And that holds true for when they bill adjacent counties as well, and when the adjacent counties bill Dunn County. Municipal funding is based on a request or an ask of the local municipality, and then they fund that based on their ability to fund that and the priorities within the municipality. So it's really, the library board is looking at what it feels it needs to pay staff, buy materials, and pay utilities and all those things. So it's basically the remainder of the revenue it needs to fund library services. So it's that portion's not based on a formula. It's based on what they need, what they believe they need to operate the library. So when the libraries are getting their money in 24, it's actually based on usage in 22. So they fill out the annual report at the beginning of this year, submitted to the county in 2023, and then it's paid in 2024. So it's really based on stuff that's occurred 2 years ago. So it's kind of a catch up kind of piece of money. So it's really not an actual cost of doing business in 2024. It's more of a way of determining a set formula that's consistent statewide to make sure that the residents of counties are receiving library services in an equitable way.
Thank you, John. And that's kind of what I was getting at. On the county level, at least, I've always looked at library funding as we're paying for library services that our county residents have already received. Now the money, and as you indicated, that we're operating in 2023 on requests based on 2022 circulation. The check will be cut in January, I think, of 2024. Is that when the
Yep.
checks come in. So we're actually, in 2024, we will be paying what it actually cost the library to service the residents of Dunn County who do not live in a municipality that has a library for services already received. Now, you know, they're obviously going to use the money this year, but one of the questions when I was on the committee on tourism and community resources is what if we did not fund the library at 100% of actual cost? And the reality is that that would almost inevitably, inexorably mean cuts to services. And a lot of times this is a little bit difficult for both county board members and committee members and the citizens to understand fully, because these are services that historically have already been provided. And if we expect to continue at the same level, we have to continue the same support. So that's always been a little bit of a difficult thing to explain, but we've been blessed with people, I think, on the board and our citizenry that understand the value of libraries and are perfectly willing to fund them at a level that allows them to continue the kind of service that they have traditionally and historically provided.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. Your voice is missed on the county board. Always a understanding of this was passed on to all the years I was on the board. You shared it with us. Yeah, you're paid by the word, I guess. I would just like to, I appreciate this educational opportunity, and I would like to just say for the record that I think our libraries are a very important part of our communities, not only from the book standpoint, but they've become really a resource center for residents or taxpayers, however you want to look at it. I guess I would say residents, because we have a lot of little people that use a library too. And a resource center to help people be able to access services that the county offers that they may or may not be aware of. Human Service Department, ADRC, various things like that. I think it's and I think most, libraries are a welcoming place, and it's a place of education. So I think it's a plus for our community to have our libraries funded at 100%. And then also, it's important for our taxpayer to know that we pay other counties for our for our people that are utilizing their libraries. So it's kind of a inter county or intertwined deal, and it all is for the benefit of the people, I think. So I just wanted to put that out to you. Yes, Andrew.
I'm just going to ask Supervisor Vogel, since you're joining us online, do you have any questions? I want to make sure you had an opportunity to ask questions. She might be selling books right now. She might be very busy.
Yeah.
But beyond that, would the two directors like to share some of the projects that they've got currently going on at the libraries that they represent? Just so we've got a little opportunity here to get a plug in.
Okay, so I wonder if John could talk a little bit about Dunn County. I think Menominee, at least the city, is fairly unique in that most of our use is driven by county residents rather than city residents. And I wonder how unique that is in Wisconsin. And I have more thoughts, but I would like to hear your answer first.
Generally, library usage is higher from municipal residents than county residents, but in most cases, it's not significant. It might be a 60-40 split or a 50, 5-45 kind of split. Dunn County is relatively unique in that, at least a couple of the libraries typically have received more county funding than they have funding from their own local municipalities, which is not normal. Generally, the municipality is the larger stakeholder in that piece. There are some traditions of how how the city in Menominee has viewed the library in the past, and I think libraries are complicated in the sense they're technically departments within the city and the villages, but their library boards have governing authority over libraries. They have special powers within state statute that most other committees or boards don't have within municipalities. And you know, the buildings are owned by the municipalities typically. And so the capital costs are borne by the municipalities, but that relationship is different in Menominee. I've been in the area for 18 years, 16 years at IFLS. Early on, the library budget was viewed as a subsidy within the city budget versus a department budget. That has transitioned a bit, but because of levy caps, it's kind of in that weird spot where the funding's not where it could be or should be.
So thank you. So as a follow-up, I do have, this is from 2009 when we requested a subsidy amount of 451,000 from the city. And this year, they're able to hopefully fund us at maybe 500,000, which is still less than what the county is funding the Menominee Library at. So if it weren't for that 100% county funding, we would be in much worse shape than we currently are. Since I started, and this is comparing pre to post COVID, but we had enjoyed, I think, 68 hours of service a week, and now we're down to 49. And that impacts people that are working. This impacts families that can't get in on weekends because we can't staff it. We don't have evening hours. We're only open until 6 o'clock. And because the city is under this levy limit, there's not a lot of wiggle room in terms of what they are able to offer us. So I really, really appreciate that the county has stepped up and funded at 100%. And if you have any creative solutions as to how we could go about offering evening hours, more weekend hours, and still delivering the services that are vital to young families, I would love to have a chat. And that's really the bulk of what we do, is really making a comfortable, welcoming environment for everybody in this county and beyond, to use the library and try to program around that to the best of our capacity.
Thank you, Jolene. Pat?
Just a comment, I was on the county board when we went from 70% to 100%, when Phil Sawin was the head of that tourism committee. And it was looked at as a gift kind of to the non-governmental. In other words, the library budgeting for the library was looked at as, well, we're going to contribute something. And I maintained and still maintain that that's not what it is. It's not a gift. It is payment for services. So me, as living 1/4 mile outside the village of Colfax, would have, without this subsidy for the non-residents of the village, I would really be in trouble. Plus, if the county didn't fund at 100%, we would be in a race to the bottom. All of our libraries would be facing cuts and reduced hours and reduced services. So it's really critical to keep the county 100% reimbursement.
Thanks for sharing that, Pat. I'll share my, when I got involved in politics in the late 90s, early 2000s, I wasn't aware of how libraries were funded. And I knew that our village allocated so much money to the library, but I was not aware that the library boards were on their own. We give them the money, but we have no say in how it's spent. I found that hard to believe when I first got in there, but that's the fact of the matter. And I as a point of understanding for people that aren't too familiar, I mean, yes, we we allocate the money to the libraries, but the library boards and the libraries themselves are an entity under their own. And they make the decisions on how they're gonna spend their money for the benefit of the library. And I think that's did you know that, Mike?
I think they did, but
Oh.
I was not so clear on it as I am now.
Yeah. And I think that's just a good thing to bring up. Because generally speaking, taxpayers want to know where their money is going, and why don't we have control over it? Well, this is because of the statute that created the libraries, and so that was a learning experience for me, and a good one, long-term. Any other questions? Jim Tripp?
Not a question, just a statement. You may have heard me say this before, but it was announced yesterday again that the state of Wisconsin has a record budget surplus. So good time to ask the state for a few extra shekels.
I think that was Jim's way of saying, if you don't care for levy limits, perhaps contact your legislators and tell them that.
That's what I meant.
I kind of read
Yeah.
between the lines, Jim. But I do think it's important that Pat had mentioned, right? Historically, they have, especially in the city of Menominee, it was viewed as a subsidy. And I was on the city council when that was, and we moved really hard to say it's not a subsidy. We are required to do this, and it's the right thing to do. Right. So I'm happy that the clerks from Boyceville and Colfax are here to be able to make sure that their boards know that it's not a gift. It is a gift to the community, but it's a requirement and it's payment for services. And that's really what we're here for.
I would entertain any other questions or comments. Anybody that's online? Amy Ann Vogel, are you on? Evidently, she's got a stampede on selling books over there, so that's good. Anybody here have any questions or statements they want to make?
Probably should, but could I also, I took enough time, she gets to. As far as getting appointed to a library board, the county does have representation, so they're not completely left out in the dark.
And that representation is based on the percentage of funding. So, in the case of Menominee, because you get more money from the county or equal to what the city gives you, they can put 5 reps onto the library board. So there is representation that is appointed by the county.
Thank you. Yes, Shelley, do you want to? Jolene threw you under the bus, so I guess it's your turn.
A brochure there, so,
Oh, this is my scrap paper.
okay.
It's notes. We don't necessarily have any huge projects going on. Just at the moment, maintaining what we've got. We're still, I think, having some of the effects of COVID. Our circulation is not up. Some of the programs aren't as well attended as they would have been, although our summer reading program was really good this year. We do, and I guess since Kathy Lefevre was director started, we do file the exemption. I did it because that's what I was told to do. I never quite understood why. But anyway, there are times when our funding from the county has been very close to what we receive from our town. When we do the formula for figuring everything out, the town has not in the past supported us more than like $1 over that minimum for exemption. So that's what we have to work with. That's why we're only open 3.5 days a week, and why we can't do some of the things that I would really like to be doing. But it is what it is. I usually get a little irritated when we're talking about this because, like you said, John, the numbers are from 2022. If I walk into my mechanic and need my car repaired. You know, you did a great job repairing my car. You were on time, fast, everything is wonderful. But I'm only going to pay you 70% of the bill. And, you know, you may have to wait a couple years to get it. So that's a little annoying to me, but like I said, it is what it is.
Thank you, Shelley, for that insightful and pointed comment. I'd just like to say that all the libraries are invited once a year to give their annual report to the county board. They come and give their report, and all the reports are pretty inclusive, and I think the libraries do a great job. So that is a time for the board members to get an education on what their local library is doing with and for their people. If I have no other questions from anybody, or no questions from online, Jolene, you want to say more? I know you do.
I don't know. Do you want to share, I don't know, some maybe big projects that you have going on? I'm just saying.
Well, we're kind of pivoting on that because we received an estate gift from Joan Pulaski a couple of years ago. And we received a grant from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation to beautify our outdoor space for better programming opportunities, make it more welcoming. Still got a long way to go on that, and I'm seeking private funding from grant sources to help us in that effort. And we discovered recently that we need a new roof to the tune of $100,000 to $200,000, depending on who you ask. So I'm working with our board to try to figure out what's the best path forward. Perhaps we need to be good stewards of our building and, you know, put a pin in developing all of the outdoor spaces in the way that we would like to. But last week it was Banned Books Week, and we partnered with the university and did some student engagement, and we talked about why it's important to have access to ideas, and why it's important to have free speech, and how a person can get involved locally by attending county board meetings and city council meetings and being informed about what's happening. And I tried to impress upon these young folks that if they don't want to get involved, that other people will happily make decisions for them, and it might not be where they want to end up. So it was good stuff. And thanks for your support.
Thank you, Jolene. I'd like to thank John Thompson. I'm a member of the Colfax Library Committee, and John's been invaluable for helping our librarian, Lisa Hurwood, and our board to proceed according to Hoyle, so to speak. And we really appreciate his help. I appreciate the fact that he came to our meeting today in an effort to educate us. So I have no further business. So that being said, we'll adjourn this meeting. The meeting is now over. Krista, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'll stop the recording. Thank you.